system.
Okay. Wait. How do we go from last week to this week, and there's still more scat following Saturday afternoon's main event? I don't get it. Right now, Peeps Nate is looking at me, and I'm looking back at him, and we both have the most dazed look ever, and I'm just like, bro, what in the actual hell? You know what? Let's not even go ahead and save it for now. Let's save it for later. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Season 6, Episode 9 of the phenomenon known to all as Saturday afternoon's main event. Of course, if you do not know who I am, I suggest you go to school, go into your library, get the biggest dictionary you can find, preferably Merriam-Webster, and look me up under the word phenomenal. Ladies and gentlemen, it is I, the phenomenal, and of course, I'm not joined alone here on Saturday afternoon's main event. I have my co-host, my compadre, the one and only limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing son of a gun who's not having a hard time holding his alligators down. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, give me 2 claps and a Peeps Nate.
Woo!
There we
yes,
go.
sir. I don't think anything happened in the world of professional wrestling this week, did it?
Peeps, are you sure about that, Peeps?
It seemed to be a real quiet week, just like last week was just quiet and pristine, serene. It was sanguine. It was calm. And then you can take all of those. Yeah, you literally, what you can do is take all of those adjectives that I just did, put them in a blender, blend them, and then pour them in the toilet, because all those words that I just came up and told you didn't happen. Doesn't apply this week. What we're going to replace it all with is strife, chaos, angst, and turmoil. That is what I call scat, and we're going to talk about it today.
Peeps, you said it correctly. I couldn't have said it any better. You know what, guys? Here's the thing. You know what? We love you guys. We enjoy what you guys do and what you guys bring to the table here at Saturday Afternoon's Main Event. We appreciate you guys for tuning in on either Twitch, Twitter, or YouTube to go ahead and witness a spectacle and the phenomenon known to all is same. We see today is fondly different. Today we're going to be dealing with a lot, okay? And when I say we're going to be dealing with a lot, I truly mean that. Because somehow, some way, one particular, and should I say, pissant company decides to put us through this I digress type of cauldron that is filled with scat.
Yes.
And I should say that it's filled with more turmoil than any of those other 3 acronyms. But it's just like, we have to get through this. There's some way that we have to get through this. So you know what? We're going to go ahead and start off with that later in the show.
Yes.
But now we're going to go ahead and do what we usually do here on Saturday afternoon's main event. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, you know that when we go ahead and get started here on Same, we get started with a little something here called Wrestling Crash Course. And you know that when you hear that, it's time. So, Peeps, should we go ahead and get right into it?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's go ahead and get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. First things first, if you followed Payback last week, you would know that Raw has a new addition. And no, I'm not talking Bobby Brown. I am talking about main event Jey Uso. Ladies and gentlemen, if you watched the Grayson Waller effect and you know that the special guest was Cody Rhodes, you would know that Cody said that he had a huge announcement, and that announcement was bringing this new addition to Raw, seeing what he had saw backstage in SmackDown for the past couple of weeks, and he decided to have that be the case. Jey Uso comes out, super kicks the hell out of Grayson Waller. Jey Uso's now on Raw, but it looks like he's building enemies along the way while trying to serve a truce. Of course, we saw Drew McIntyre being one of the first.
Yes.
Then Riddle out of nowhere. But the one person that seems to be on his side is the honorary Uso, Bro Chacho, Sami Zayn.
Yes.
So, in that sense, peeps, what is your thoughts about everything that's been going on since Payback up until the point on Raw? And what are we able to see for the next couple of weeks?
What I see is that we're coming to that part of the show on Raw where you have somebody that is connected to the bloodline and somebody that was part of the bloodline. Even if they're not there anymore, they are there in blood. And then you had somebody that was connected by friendship. Both of them have betrayed not only each other, but have been betrayed by the same bloodline that they were in. So now we're going to see if they can coexist and try to make everything Usi. And I think that's what they're trying to do on Raw. And I love the dynamic that they're going with Jimmy being on SmackDown and trying to come back and do his thing. Jay being probably of the two, the more marketable one, the one that they've been trying to tell everybody and show everybody has the most mainstream appeal, hence the name Main Event Jey Uso. It's hard to believe that we're at this point now and Jay is coming into his own as a singles wrestler and just not even having as many matches, but just having his presence being recognized and showing the layers that they're trying to build. One, trying to make sure that he has his men fences, so to speak, with people that he may have been friends with that are on Raw, but also to show you it's not going to be a walk in the park, as there are going to be people that they look at him as an insider. You're going to have people that are not friendly with him because of what he represented at the time he was in the bloodline. Yeah. But even more so, just another person that is taking up space and potentially a roster spot for other people on the roster that don't think that he's there because of his gifts, but because of his name and who he's related to. Exactly. So you bring that dynamic on camera, you have him try to interact with the wrestlers that are there, and then you make sure that that's the storyline that has its own depth and its own layers to peel off the onion. Because we know at some point, Jimmy and Jay are going to collide. You see where I went with that one? Like you see, that's what you call a segue. There you go.
There we go.
They're going to collide. They're going to have a match. I don't know if it's going to be within Survivor Series, maybe at Fastlane, maybe at the Survivor Series. Whenever they decide to get that going, and they have that first match between the two brothers, is going to be huge. But I think you have to lay the groundwork, because even though this is its own story, it's still part of Act 3. Act 3 has to end the story at some point. Let's see what they do.
Exactly right. So with that being said, that marks that for Jey Uso. So now you're saying, okay, Cody Rhodes brought Jey Uso to Raw. So that's one less person on the SmackDown roster.
Yes.
What does SmackDown get back? So here's the thing. Adam Pearce said on Monday Night Raw that Raw would be giving trade capital to SmackDown, but he never specified when. He never said when that was going to happen. But he did say that SmackDown will be acquiring something of the same level as Main Event Jey Uso. Guys, calm down. As I watched The Office so many times in this one episode always reigns true. It's the stay calm, guys. Stay calm. It's happening. Mm-hmm. Stay calm.
Yes.
Guys, we know where this is heading to, because for me, about to say this, I have a little bit of adrenaline in my soul for this one.
Okay.
Peeps, Cody's going to SmackDown. Like, there's no other way, shape, or form about this. And I think we know this due to the fact that when on the Grayson Waller show, Cody introduced Jay, and they both kind of looked at each other, and they kind of crossed paths, and it was just like Cody got out of the ring, and they had that camera shot on Cody just exiting out and going up the ramp and looking at Jay the whole time. And you're sitting there, you're saying to yourself, I mean, does that mean they're going to have a feud on Raw? Could be. Maybe so. But, peeps, can Cody be looking at that and saying, oh, snap, I just got the executives to make the biggest trade of in the history of the WWE. I'm going to SmackDown and I'm going to finish the story. And it's like, oh, I have to prepare now. So that means I have to go through him and anybody else on the roster to get ready to get traded to SmackDown in the coming weeks or months just to face Roman Reigns. Is that what we're looking at, peeps?
Well, it is a potential nod to his former EVP duties in AEW. And he kind of referenced that a little bit. I'm cashing in all of my cachet in the back. All of my chips went all in to see who can go ahead and get something going with this. And I think that's probably the most simple thing to do. But at the same time, they wanted to, I'm pretty sure if this is the avenue that they are taking, they're going to have to drain this and lengthen this some time, because let's really be honest. If that is going to be the case, and Roman is going to give that rematch to Cody, if that is how they're going to do this, it's going to have to be stretched, because we're almost 7 months away from WrestleMania.
Exactly.
If they're going to do this, they're going to have to do it in a way that it doesn't happen now, because then you're going to drag this whole thing on and then people are going to get tired of it. So you keep Cody on, you kind of hint at, well, we know certain draft capital or certain people coming in, certain concessions that they would have to make to the roster, like some of those things that they tried to establish. If the draft actually meant something, where people would be legitimately stuck to the brand that they're on with particular rules, etc., champions stay on this show, that kind of thing. If they're going to say, because we got Jey Uso, there are going to be certain things or certain concessions, and then over the next couple of weeks, you might see a tag team or a particular wrestler, or the fact that a champion that I would say is stuck to one brand has to actually show up on SmackDown as a concession for this trade, and then a wrestler of that caliber to be named later, which will be given in effective by such and such date. So they can do it in that route. The simplest thing would be Cody. If we're talking about that finishing the story thing, that gives you the first automatic out into how we're going to get that rematch, since Cody is on Raw. Meanwhile, you know that the executives on USA want Cody to stay on Raw, the same way they've wanted on Fox to have Roman Reigns exclusive to SmackDown. So there are going to be a couple of issues that they're going to have to iron out storyline wise, and making sure that it works in the long run so that they can pace this, because this is the marathon part. We're not at the sprint area yet. They've got the marathon, build up the drama, and then you pull back a little bit, and then you roll that rod out in the fishing terminology. You throw that rod out in the water and you reel it back a little bit. You give them a tug, then you pull it. Then you cast the rod back out again. That's what they're doing.
Well, peeps, we can only give it time, right?
Yes.
That is exactly what we're going to go ahead and do. So from there, we move into the world of AEW. And one thing I have to say, All Out last week, it had to be one of the better pay-per-views of the year.
Yes.
I enjoyed it. Considering the scat that we had to deal with the day before, which we will get into later at the show. Don't worry, I got you guys.
Trust us. If you thought last week, where we did what we said what we said last week was entertaining, oh boy, pull up a chair, get some popcorn, and drink something. We're going to have to say some things and put some verbs and adjectives in our sentences.
Had to sip a little bit of coffee, peeps, because I'm telling you, the scat is just getting to me. It's in my head, man. It's in my head.
Full cup of iced tea.
Full cup of iced tea. And
yes.
He's repping the New York Giants, ladies and gentlemen. NFL starts tomorrow. Amen to that. Hey, how about that? But when it comes to all out, show was stellar. You had Mox versus Orange Cassidy.
Yes.
Perfectly well matched. You had was it Better Than You Baby versus, I believe it was Aussie Open once again?
Yes.
Look, MJF, stellar. I love the man. Then comes out Samoa Joe, They do the callback to NXT Takeover, and I'm telling you, I was all in on that. Pun intended.
Yes. There you go.
But I have to say, the one match that really did it for me was the one that was trademark. Big meaty men slapping meat. Miro versus Hobbs. Guys, look.
Yes.
Anybody that knows me knows that I rated this match a good 4.5 stars out of 5.
Yes.
This match was great. I loved it. Up until the point that Tony Khan had to pull a Vince McMahon, and he had to implement Lana, or should I say CJ Perry.
Yes.
With another, how can I put this? Don't want to come off too political here, peeps. A brother, okay? Let's put it like that.
There you go.
That works.
Yes.
But
yes,
pairing CJ with Hobbs for a good little second, then ends up going ahead and having the match being over. Miro, right there, looking at his wife. You're not real. I forsaken you.
Yes.
He gets out of the ring.
I cannot redeem you. I texted you when that match was over, and I remember just stating the Hobbs Miro match was as close to what we got at WrestleMania with that the triple threat match, as far as the Sheamus match at WrestleMania and that triple threat. For those who remember, that I called was my match of the entire show for me for that second night at WrestleMania. They literally went and beat each other senseless. You have Walter, and then you have Sheamus, and then you had Drew McIntyre.
Oh God!
They beat each other senseless for 20 minutes.
You can only imagine. You can only imagine the energy in the building for that, peeps. I mean, for God's sakes, we were on our feet. We were on our feet. That was a.
For those that didn't see the match, I'm going to let you peer into what the experience was watching it. There was an audible tension when the two got in the ring, because as soon as they kind of stared each other down, Miro brought an energy to the match that was different than I'd seen before. And I'm like, okay, this could actually be a good match. And then they started pounding on each other, literally. And when I knew the fans were going to get into this match, everybody in the crowd, I would say about halfway into the match, every time somebody got hit, all you heard was a very loud, audible chant of meat, meat. There's a chop, meat. There was a spot when Miro, he chopped Hobbs. Hobbs backed away. You hear meat. So he turns around and he clotheslines him. Miro backs up. He hits the ground, gets up. He hulks up, and then he comes back and hits him with a clothesline. And then he drops Hobbs, and Hobbs gets right back up. And then he looks around, he looks at his forearm, he hits him again, drops Miro. All the while, every time somebody got hit outside of the ridiculous slapping of meat all over the ring, the fans said meat, and it got louder every chant. Meat, meat, meat. It's like they were trying to cheer over each other every time. That it was a surreal experience in a match that no one expected to be that good. And I've been talking about Hobbs for the longest time, about he should have been getting a push years ago. That should have been the start of it. This is the kind of match that Hobbs can give you. And the fans recognize that, especially after the scat that preceded everything this weekend. That Chicago fan base, they were energized for that match. They were energized for Miro. And then when Miro got the game over on, they really went crazy. Even the spot where Miro put the game over on Hobbs and Hobbs got out of it. And the fans were like, whoa, they loved this match. And if it was on any other show, it would have gotten even more attention. But this was right in the middle of the card. This could have been a main event type match. That's how good that match was.
Definitely right on that, peeps. And I mean, they hit it right on the marker. I loved it, the theatrics. And one thing that I'm noticing that AEW's kind of counterparting on is the theatrics, the kind of little bit of storytelling within the matches.
Yes.
It's no longer about the athletic ability. They're now kind of focused more on storytelling as well. So I'm loving that. A1,
Yes.
great job from the both of those men. And honestly, great job from the rest of the AEW roster. They put on a good show, knowing how much that we didn't want to buy the pay-per-view. I still ended up going to see it, and it was great. It was great. It was great. From there, we moved back to WWE in the form of Payback. Look, we had Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch in a steel cage.
Yes.
At least 4 stars from my end.
Yes.
And this is not Meltzer's rating system, okay? This is honestly my rating system.
So you mean this one actually has meaning with what you're saying?
Oh, yes, peeps. Yes.
Hmm.
This is not me just being a fanboy of New Japan. Yes, Meltzer, I said it. But
Let me wipe the sweat from my brow as you go ahead and describe what you just did.
There we go. There we go. There we go. But with that being said, Judgment Day winning the tag team championships, something that I didn't even see coming. But so pleasantly done.
Yes.
From there, peeps, honestly for me, John Cena being implemented into the LA Knight and Miz match, it wasn't needed, but I get it. The extra rub, having him go ahead and lift up LA Knight's hand, even though they kind of had a little bit of turmoil within the match against each other.
Which they just had to. They just had to.
You had to, man. You had to. That was great. But for me, the fact that I said to myself that Shinsuke was winning the match against Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight title, and I was even believing it even more when you had the Great Muta ringside for Shinsuke's match, and the first thing that came to my mind, oh my gosh, what if the Muta is Shinsuke's new manager, and somehow, some way, he sprays the mist into Seth Rollins' eyes, and then Kinshasa 1, 2, 3. I was having all different types of thoughts, and I was just saying to myself, this has to be done well. But Seth Rollins ends up winning the match.
Yes. And a very good match, no less. Very good.
Great match.
Yes.
So now, here's what I'm saying to this. With the World Heavyweight title match, and even for so on and so forth, this run has been great. 10 defenses in the last couple of months. 27 defenses. Peeps, I have to say, Seth is doing great. But the way that they played on the back, and they still continue to play on the back, what does this mean for Seth? Does he drop the titles sooner or later? Maybe at Fastlane? Does he keep it up until WrestleMania? Because, mind you, they made the title with the implications that everybody gets a chance to go ahead and win the title. And this is for the people that weren't able to go ahead and get a shot at Roman.
Yes.
But if Seth is going to be the title holder from May up until April, which is what it's looking like it's going to be, what was the point? Get me? But if that being said, do we still continue to see the feud with Shinsuke grow? Or do we see somebody else take a shot? Or do we see Damian Priest cash in the Money in the Bank? Or do we see Finn Balor cash in the Money in the Bank by taking out the contract and putting it in the other briefcase the way that we seen it happen on Raw?
Yes.
What happens, peeps? What are we seeing, man? What is the glimpse for the future?
I think what we're seeing right now is they have a storyline out that they can work into how the title loss, the title change could happen. It would kind of be a cop-out, but this is kind of similar to what they did with Dusty Rhodes after he lost the world championship back to Ric Flair. They always had the out for a long time was his busted up left knee when the Horsemen would jump Dusty and then they busted his leg up. Initially, they broke the ankle and then they went to the knee. So there was always an opportunity for somebody that is almost invincible. You've given them an Achilles heel. For Seth, who has literally had, I would probably say, if you're looking at top 10 matches, he probably had 3 or 4 of them this year. So if we're looking at what he can do, they've made him that much more human and personable. Because remember, they've gone to the extreme of how they've given his presentation of making him the star. He's over the top. He's got the wife. He's got the child. He has the over extravagant wardrobe. He's making the money and the appearances. How are you going to beat this guy?
Yeah.
Well, he's got a really bad back, as he's explained. He's got 2 fractures in the vertebrae in his lower lumbar, which I would assume is absolutely painful. So if you're gonna go there, you're gonna have to showcase that in every feud he's in. And I think the Shinsuke Nakamura feud is kind of how they're going to make that blueprint going forward of how we're going to have that kind of feud happen, the matches that he's going to have, and it's going to be incorporated in every opponent's moveset. Will Shinsuke win the belt? Probably not. But I tell you one thing, Triple H and the way that they booked this match, they made you believe. And that's all you can ask for. If you're going to have a long title reign, the hardest thing to do is to make sure that if that one person is champion for an extended period of time, that it is believable that every opponent that they step in the ring with is a believable, credible opponent that can take that championship. That's something that Flair used to do during the territory days. That's some of the things that you used to see with all of the greats that were world champions, like Nick Bockwinkel, and those kinds of legends that had the belt a year, 2 years. And I'm not saying that Seth is going to have it that long, but if you're going to have a lengthy title reign, it's got to be believable or no one's going to buy into it and nobody's going to want to care. That's how you do it. And they're doing a great job with that right now.
Exactly right, peeps. So, hold on. We had Taekwon in the chat here. Taekwon said a couple of things. He's like, Punk got rolled in a spliff, ironic. Jeez. Later, man, we got you.
Yes.
He then says, Muta was straight facing this match like a colt.
Mm-hmm.
You start again, Taekwon, huh, buddy? He says, I think Seth is going till Mania. It's great to have a strong inaugural champion. Maybe so. Yes. So maybe a cash in at Mania. Second heist of the century. Is that where we're going to be going? Maybe
and it would work. It would have more gravitas if it's done at WrestleMania. Let's say if everybody's healthy enough and they can get that story stretched out there, it makes perfect sense because Priest would have his WrestleMania moment. Seth would show how dominant he is as a champ, but then his back is bothering. Now, we also know the WWE has been really bad at cash-ins at WrestleMania as of late. So if they did something like that at this upcoming WrestleMania in Philly, that would work.
Exactly right. From there, one thing I have to say, we do know that, certain moves are due to be, sold, especially the South of Heaven. Yes. So imagine Damian Priest cashes in the Money in the Bank on Seth Rollins at WrestleMania, who was the first person to actually successfully do it at WrestleMania.
Yes.
By using his finisher, the South of Heaven, that will excruciatingly break Seth Rollins' back to the point that he is written off TV for a couple of weeks or months, and Damian Priest ends up being champion. That works well. Honestly,
yes, it does.
It's not a bad cash-in. If booked right and if healthy for everyone, it works. So we'll just have to wait and see, peeps.
Yes.
Someone also said, speaking of the blueprint, that album dropped on. Guys.
This is a family show.
He says, along with the Nevermind, bro.
Yes.
Oh gosh.
One thing I have to bring up,
bro, Taekwon doesn't stop. Jeez, bro.
He's on a roll. He's on a roll.
He is.
But the one thing that I do want to bring up, even though this has nothing to do with Payback, but it is in WWE, and it's something that I think has been a pleasant surprise with WWE, is just how good NXT has become. Somebody I heard earlier in the week made an analogy of what NXT has since it's evolved from when, for us, the heights was the gold and black.
Yeah, black and gold.
And then they went through the unicorn vomit.
Yeah, unicorn.
Somebody literally said, and I heard this, I can't remember the person's name, but they said that NXT has basically become the Muppet Babies version of the Attitude Era. And if you think about it, it makes sense.
No, wait, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
They do some of the wildest stuff on NXT within the last 8 months. NXT has really turned into a small miniature version of the Attitude Era. And as I said, I have to find out the person that said that because I did not come up with that quote. But it is the most descriptive, on-point description of any promotion out there. And if you look at the stuff that's been going on, they do some of the wildest, craziest stuff.
I.e. Braun Breaker and Von Wagner?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. See,
yes.
The power of the internet is great sometimes. Because I kid you not, if I didn't see that clip that we both saw, peeps,
yes,
I would have actually believed the whole thing.
Yes.
They did an amazing job of actually, like, selling it everything. And I was sitting there with the intention that the man killed Von Wagner. He killed Von Wagner.
And they gave you context before the feud really started because they'd been building up the feud with Braun Breaker and Von Wagner and touching in on what he went through in his childhood and being the son of a wrestler and all of the other things that he was made fun of, et cetera, et cetera. And then to have that match and to not only do that, Von is a huge face now. And he's got the sympathy of the fans, but he's also got a catchphrase now and his own T-shirt. He's looking to table folks. That works. And now he got a chance to table Braun Breaker. Breaker actually was able to get up from being tabled and do what he did to Von. And this is for those that didn't see NXT, just a small amount of what they did. Braun was able to get the upper hand and beat up after the match was over, beat up Von Wagner, and then go to the outside, put his head on the steel steps. For those that knows, the WWE steel steps are really heavy. Took the top section off of it while his head is hanging, goes and picks it up, and just as he's about to drop it, the screen went black. They showed they showed the Chiron in the lower left corner of the screen with the live watermark on the screen, and all you heard was bang. And then you heard Booker T, and then you heard Vic
Joseph.
Like, what happened? And then you could hear the panic. You could hear the crowd screaming and the yelling and the panic. And then that was the end of the show. That's what you do. That's the kind of stuff that used to happen on Raw back in 1998. That's the kind of stuff that they're doing. Like the person said, the Muppet Babies version of the Attitude Era.
Shawn Michaels Booker of the Year.
There you go.
Listen, all said and done. That's easy. That's the easiest way to put it. But honestly, for Braun, I see he has to be going to the main roster now. Honestly, because this has to mean, Braun's actions for the past couple of months have been crazy enough. The interferences between matches, the certain things that he's been doing to certain wrestlers. Now's the time for us to go ahead and remove him from NXT, and they fire him, and from that he shows up on the main roster and just starts wreaking havoc out there. Honestly, that's a great way to go ahead and kick it off.
Yes.
But with that being said, that marks the end of Wrestling Crash Course, ladies and gentlemen. From there, we will get into our last topic of today's show, but that will be after the break.
Yes.
So after the break, we'll go ahead and come back to our questions, and then after that, we'll get into the last topic of today's show. Of course, if you know and you can see what the name of today's show was, it is Long Live Charles Montgomery Punk.
Yes.
Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Do not go anywhere because the second half of Saturday afternoon's main event is coming up next. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the second half of Saturday afternoon's main event, Season 6, Episode 9. Of course, it's the Peeps H, and it's the phenomenal one here. We'll go ahead and get straight into our questions here. Of course, guys, just send in a question. All you have to do is just DM us on Instagram at Saturday afternoons _ main event. You send in the question, it will be featured on the next episode of the show. So that being said, peeps, let's just go ahead and get right into the questions, right?
Good.
We do have 3 questions today, and we're only going to cover 1 because the other 2 will tie in to the next topic. So we'll go ahead and answer those as we move on with the topic and all that.
Boy, we've got a good main event topic to talk about today.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So here's what I'm talking. Long Island Isaiah said this. He said, NFL is back and my Dolphins will have an MJF title run. I'm talking Super Bowl. Not if Tua still acts like who? Roderick Strong? Please forget it. What? Neck brace and all? But,
oh boy.
All that, peeps, we have to say.
Yes.
The whole Roderick Strong stuff, it's going well.
Yes.
Do we see that he's getting tied into the whole Grand Slam tournament final to face MJF at Grand Slam for the title?
I am pretty sure.
We know he's going to be the one to do it, right? And the story will just continue to fold. But this is the thing with that story. What do you think about the whole story with what they're doing with with the Kingdom, Roderick, MJF, and Adam Cole? What do we see? Because it looks like they're keeping MJF busy.
Yes. It's good that they have finally realized that there are a segment of the wrestling fandom that watches AEW that has no idea of any of the history of the Kingdom. So they've done a better job over the last, I'd say, 2 weeks, kind of getting the connections and finding the connective tissue that kind of intertwines Adam Cole with Roderick Strong and with all of the other players that are involved. I think that you're going to have to do that to give context to why this is supposed to matter. Because if you look at what they're doing with Roderick Strong, and it's like, okay, Mike Bennett, why is he connected to this? Why is Taven connected to all of this? You know why? Because they're all within the same group. They were all friends. They were all brought along in the business together. They've known each other. They have a history. And if you're going to bring them all in, and then you have what they're doing with Adam Cole and his friendship with MJF, you've got to stretch these all along and still bring them together so that they connect and make sense, but not to go and hotshot the whole angle way before, like the AR Fox storyline that they did, where they completely hotshot a 3 to 6 month angle over some unfortunate circumstances.
Yes. Well, peeps, from there, this marks the end of our questions for now.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, as I say, if you want to go ahead and send in a question, all you got to do on Instagram at Saturday afternoons _ main event, and it will be featured on the next episode of the show. So. Wait. Remember I said this at the beginning of the show. How the hell do we go from 1 week of somewhat perfect harmony, speaking in on certain things,
Yes,
and then somehow, some way, we get to the scat that was last week. So here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing, right? Right after the show of last week, episode 8, we sat here and we talked about how All In turned into Brawl In.
yes.
When we had Brawl Out literally 365 days or almost close to that, almost a year ago. We talked about what we thought needed to be done. We said who we blamed, and I believe me and Peeps both said that we both blamed Tony Khan.
Yes.
Because he should be able to put his foot down in certain instances.
Mm-hmm.
We kept it at that. Ended the show on a high note, whatever the case may be. Taekwon, Punk was all in that. You know what?
Yeah, you know?
Oh, you know what?
As crazy as that is, he's really not that far off.
So here's the thing. Right after the show, I had sat down and I was watching some college football. And watching college football, people know not to disturb me. And plus, the game that I was watching was really entertaining. It was TCU versus Colorado.
Yes.
And Coach Prime and them boys, they are dogs. They was putting the smack down on TCU. It was perfectly put well to watch.
Yes.
And as the fourth quarter was winding down, I had gotten a notification. A tweet on X, formerly known to all as Twitter, from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com. And all it read was AEW has terminated Charles Montgomery Punk.
Yes.
And you know what? You know the first picture that came to my mind was, peeps? It was this.
Yeah.
Put perfectly well.
Yes.
So I started reading, peeps, and I started reading well. And it was just talking about how Punk was, doing this backstage and doing that backstage. And the AEW felt like it was just not the right, way to continue to have him, there with everything that's been going on. Tony talked about in the letter, he was just like, oh, I've never seen this happen before, this, that, and the third, where, I've always appreciated Punk and we thank him for, what he's brought to All Elite Wrestling, this, that, and the third, whatever, so on and so forth. Mind you, they didn't say if he had 30-day clause like most other wrestlers once they get released. They didn't say anything about that. All they said was that he was terminated. I'm looking at the tweet. I'm looking at college football. I'm looking back at the tweet. I'm looking back at college football. And the first thing that came to my mind was, oh my God, I have to call Peeps. Me thinking Peeps I'd already saw it because it was already past 24, 25 minutes since the tweet came out.
Mm-hmm.
I call Peeps and I'm like, Peeps, did you get the news? Peeps is telling me, what news, man? I'm like, what are you talking about? What news? How have you not seen this yet? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. What happened?
Yes.
And I begin to read to him the letter. When I finished up the letter, the only word that came out of Peeps' mouth was, huh? I'm like, Peeps, how oblivious can you be to this right now? Punk is fired. He's like, wow. I'm like, Peeps,
Yes.
what is with these one word like responses?
Yes.
Say something to me, man. Peeps was as oblivious as I was.
Yes.
Because, guys, not even an hour passed where we spoke upon this and we got this. And I was like, okay, you know what? Listen, Tony finally is putting his foot down. As much as I didn't want to see Punk go, I love Punk. I love what he always brings to the table in terms of professional wrestling. But it was just something that needed to be done. From a business standpoint, Tony had to put his foot down. Had to go ahead and show the other ones in the back that, yes, he is a cool boss, but he's not going to continue to play the teacher's pet, which is fine. I was cool with that. But here's the thing. Yes, this is why I love the fans. I love the people. The Phenom agrees with me when I was about to say this, but he literally said it for me. I think Perry should have joined Punk on the unemployment list. Yes, you are right. Correct as always, yes. Rod says this. CM Punk was the cancer of AEW. No, he was not. There are other people in the back that are deemed to be cancer. Things that were literally saying, oh, you know what? Maybe this is the dark cloud that has finally been lifted. No, it's not. There are still people there who shouldn't be there. There are people in certain positions who shouldn't be in certain positions. Here's what I'm saying, okay? What pissed me off the most was I watched Collision, and of course, Tony Khan opens up the show, and Tony Khan says they had to terminate CM Punk. And what pissed me off, what really grind my gears, shout out Peter Green,
there you go,
was Tony Khan saying that with what Punk did, Tony feared for his life. Oh, you're telling me that after a full year of a dog being hit by Kenny Omega, probably super kicked by the Young Bucks, of Ace Steel throwing chairs at Kenny, biting the man senseless, of Andrade and Sammy Guevara getting into it in the back, to Thunder Rosa and some of the women in the women's division getting into fights, that Punk going ahead and beating little Jack Perry senseless and probably lunging at you was the moment that you feared for your life. Are you kidding?
Woosah. Woosah. Woosah.
Look, peeps, when I heard that, I said to myself, you can't be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. Tony Khan said that, and he said that he feared for his life. After literally speaking praises on Punk in a letter merely hours before you made that announcement?
Yes.
So now you're really making it look like Punk was the black sheep. While Jack Perry was told by many not to do a spot, there was no need to do the spot. Other wrestling enthusiasts, other big names in the industry, i.e. Jim Cornette, even said, look, there was no need for that spot. Honestly, in my all years of going ahead and being a booker for wrestling, being in the industry, knowing what I know, that spot wasn't needed for that match. It wasn't needed at all. It wasn't even needed prior, but he wanted to do it prior. There was no need for it. Other executives, other people said, no, there's no need to have it. Producer said it. He still didn't want to listen. It was Tony's job to put his foot down to Jack Perry. But instead, he had CM Punk go ahead and do it. CM Punk did what he did. Perry wanted to be a piss ass. And then we had to go ahead and get to this at All In. Had Tony put his foot down, none of this would have ever happened. But no, Tony is, you know what? Let me put it like this. MJF said this back at the Kia Forum last year, I believe, after, what was it? It was after All Out?
I think so.
No, after Double or Nothing.
Okay.
When he had the pipe bomb and he said, Tony, you shouldn't be at Gorilla. The only position you should be assuming is with these people behind the guardrail.
Mm-hmm.
Then proceeded to call the man a mark. MJF hasn't spoken clear words since then. Those were the most clearest words I've ever seen and heard MJF ever speak into existence because it's true. Tony Khan is just a fan. He is bringing, this is like the Indian in the cupboard. And peeps, if you've ever read the book and watched the movie, you would know that little kid brought his action figures to life and made them do what he wanted them to do.
Yes.
Tony Khan is bringing his action figures to life, creating a wrestling company, spending however much money he wants to spend because his father owns pretty much Wembley Stadium, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Fulham FC, and any other thing that they could probably put their hands off. The man's worth $12 billion. Of course, Tony Khan has a bank. The man will literally spend what he needs to spend to make sure that he gets to see his dream matches. He gets to see the WWE stars that he never got to put in his promotion to make himself seem better and to somehow think he's going to beat WWE. But here's the thing. As the Phenom said, Jack Perry had to go ahead and go as well. No, that wasn't the only thing. Because you see, Master Sean 007 said this, and this is our first question considering this whole thing. This is what he said. He said, greetings, gentlemen. Before I continue, I would like to address a pet peeve of mine that goes back years. And that is referring to wrestlers or professional wrestlers as cancers when someone doesn't agree with how that said person carries themselves. As someone who has been personally affected by cancer, that wording irks me. Now, for the past few years, we have been asking Tony Khan to step up and be a boss first and friend second to the talent in his company. He made a decision to fire CM Punk, but he shouldn't have stopped there. He should strip the title of EVP from the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. No way should active wrestlers have that much power. Your thoughts?
Hmm.
Completely right. Can't agree better. Peeps, there comes a moment where there shouldn't be a sense of a hierarchy when it comes to pro wrestlers. If this was happening in WWE, oh, I would have had a field day on Vince McMahon. But no, you know why there isn't such of a thing? Because there isn't any active wrestlers assuming a big vice president position or executive position in the company. Yes, Vince McMahon was an on-screen talent, but mind you, he held an executive position before anything else. Triple H, you can't say that, but he began to become a part-timer once he started running. Stephanie McMahon, I guess you can count that, but she only just ran storylines. Matches, not so much. Shane, I guess you can say so. Yes, you can say Shane in a sense, but Shane still had to go through his father. And whatever his father said, went. Wasn't like he got the shot to book much matches, although that Rumble was pretty iffy. But that was pretty much all, right, peeps?
For the most part.
For the most part, okay. So, here's what we began to know more of. After this whole fiasco, we began to hear rumblings that a meeting was supposed to take place concerning the Elite, Tony Khan, and CM Punk. But it didn't take place because the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega chose not to meet with Punk. They said that if 6 months can go by of Punk not having any problems with the roster or anything in that predicament, then they would sit down and talk with Punk. Which is why Tony Khan brought up the decision to make a second show and strictly put Punk on it. Because Tony seemed like he wanted to actually mend things. But this happens. We then hear that Punk never got to go ahead and have the meeting due to the fact that on his end, from what they're hearing, was that the meeting was already scheduled. Punk was on his way to go ahead and getting to that one Dynamite that they both shared, since it was also a Collision taping. And as he got there, they said that they scrapped the meeting. Being that he was also in the back, they were in the back. And that is why when he went on camera, that exact episode, if you remember, peeps, you remember him literally saying into the camera, I'm not even supposed to be on this show.
Mm-hmm.
That's where that came from. So now, this starts to show you something. The politics is politicking. There is favorable senses in certain things that they're doing. And, you know, when I get to the EVPs, now I'm getting to the EVPs and now I'm really going to be pissed off. Because Collision happens, right? When Collision gets off the air, Matt and Nick Jackson go out to the ring, half-empty arena, starts running a victory lap around the ring. How childish can you possibly be? How inbred can you possibly be? How stupid can you possibly look? You're an executive vice president of a company, a professional wrestling company at that. Your promotion just sold a multi-million-dollar gate, cross-ocean, cross-continental, and you pulled this BS. Why? Because you got somebody out of the company that you wanted to get out? How nice. Perfect. Great. That's for business, huh? But now, with that being said, everybody is saying, oh, he's a cancer. Oh, he's this. Oh, he's that. Oh, it's great that he left. When the people who are literally responsible for him acting like this are still there. Tony hasn't done nothing to them. Neither do I think he will do anything to them. What it is going to take for them to get a sufferable fate is AEW dropping in numbers drastically on whatever they drop. Because truth be told, peeps, if we're actually noticing, and you even sent this to me too, more than 14% of the viewers dropped in AEW after Tony Khan delivered that announcement on Collision this past Saturday. Not only that, AEW is going to do a show next week on Dynamite. Do you know that only with it being 4,000 people destined to be at that show in what tickets that they have available, only 1,000 people bought tickets? 1,300 and some change.
Wow.
And there's about 2,000 something tickets left. So that whole place is literally not even being bought out. What does that tell you, peeps? Viewership is drastically down. Dynamite took a big hit. And it's not like the NFL was on. It's not like the NBA was on. WWE didn't have a show that day. Impact is on Thursdays. So what is your excuse now, AEW? What is your excuse now for drastically dropping? Oh, was it that big of an episode? It should be that big of an episode. You just had the fallout to All Out. Everything that's supposed to be implemented is supposed to be implemented through that show. And mind you, the only thing that I really stayed up for and watched was MJF and Samoa Joe's promo battle. That's all. After that, I tuned out. I ain't care. Because it pisses me off that, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and quote CM Punk on this one. It makes me sick that we have EVPs who don't know any better, who can't manage a target, going ahead and doing things as to crapping on his name, making him look no better than anybody in the roster, while knowing damn well that the first $1 million gate that you guys had, he was in the main event. But you know what? For now, I digress. I send it over to Peeps. Peeps, what are your thoughts about this whole situation?
That tells you how serious of a topic this is. When we literally went an entire hour and we only got our first I digress. I have to record this for prosperity. It is September the 9th, 2023. And at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we got our first I digress in this show full of I digresses over the years. Peace. And I have to tell you, you're dead on.
In the words of superstar Billy Graham, have mercy.
Yes, and get the pythons, brother. Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man. What a week. Okay. I will add to this shiny turd of a of a situation.
Shiny's an understatement.
Yes, by putting more shine on this turd. Here's what we're going to do. Based on everything that you just stated and everything that we've seen and all of the things that we know about and the insane rant that I went on last week. And I actually watched back that rant because somebody told me that I was really animated. I didn't really realize how animated I was.
Oh yeah, you were, Peeps. Oh yeah, you were. Yeah. You were.
I literally lost it. I had an out of body experience as I was going off on AEW. But I will preface it by saying this. First off, I am a wrestling fan. I don't care where I see the wrestling from. If the wrestling is good, I will watch it. Yes. I am a fan of AEW. I've been watching AEW since day one, and it's the complete antithesis, for the most part, to what we see with the WWE, exactly right. And in some instances, to what we see on Impact and some of the other companies that are out there. In laying out the reason why AEW works, it was because of counterculture. We're not the same as the competition. We're completely different. In this instance, there's a lot of similarity between a lot of other promotions and some of the pitfalls that they've fallen into. Namely, how do you deal with somebody whose aura, whose personality and essence actually supersedes the company that they're in? CM Punk, not only since being in AEW over the last, about 2 years, on and off because of injury, etc., has brought AEW in more eyeballs, bigger gates, much more money as far as pay-per-view buy rates going up, attention
Merchandise
mainstream,
sales.
merchandising sales, t-shirts, ice cream bars, etc. Charles Montgomery Punk has done so much for AEW, and a lot of people thought that he was in lockstep with Tony Khan. Everybody thought,
Yep.
you know what? He's good. He's bringing things in. And even Jim Cornette at one point was saying, you know, Tony Khan is starting to listen to some of the things that other people that know more about the wrestling business will say, and he's starting to listen to it. He was picking up on certain things.
Yeah.
The problem, as you stated in that diatribe that you did a little earlier, is the fact that Tony Khan is a player coach. He is friends with the talent. He loves to be buddy-buddy with the talent, which a lot of people thought was an issue with Eric Bischoff in the waning years of WCW, where he seemingly befriended Hogan and Nash and Hall and all of the other people that were involved, that it was to the extent the wrestlers that were on the roster didn't look at it as the same as, like, you know what? He's befriending these guys. Well, what about the guys below on the roster that are kind of the foundation to prop up the stars? What about them?
Oh.
And we have heard story after story after story of wrestlers in the back in AEW, their morale being up and down because they don't know what's going on with the lack of direction and also the lack of authority that went on with Tony Khan in respect to certain instances. As far as CM Punk goes, if you are CM Punk and you have the ear of the booker, promoter, owner, etc., and they've crafted everything around you, and they've, to the extent of taken 2 hours of programming and moved it to a day that nobody looked at wrestling on anymore, and said, this is your show. You, whatever you think you need to help get this show going and keep you happy within the company, we're going to give. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, here you go. And the only reason why it happened is because CM Punk is CM Punk. Exactly. We have had so many instances, and I'm not even talking about the brawl out from last year. Besides that, let's talk about what we're seeing now, based on some of the stuff that led us to Brawl In. If you think about it, Collision started in June. So we're talking 3 months ago.
Yep.
And in June, this was the CM Punk show with a lot of his friends and a lot of the people that believed, or that Punk believed could make a tremendous show, different enough from Dynamite, but still good on its own, even to the extent of the homage and the designs of the show to make it look a lot like WCW Nitro. A lot of the Chiron on the screen, a lot of the flashy graphics, a lot of the attitude of it, the lighting.
Kevin Kelly and Nigel McGuinness.
Even down to the commentary. Perfect. The opening of the show reminded everybody of the opening of Saturday night's Main Event. For those that look at the show, they get the homage and how it's booked. You can tell that's a CM Punk edition. And all of the things that were there, including Ace Steel, CM Punk's trainer, being hired as kind of a quasi-producer to help produce some of the matches and do some things to help the show out. All of these things were crafted for CM Punk to coexist in a system that on the outside was very, very frenetic against him. and the antithesis of what he was trying to bring to the company. When we look at what happened with Jack Perry and that entire deal, the spot that happened at the pay-per-view in London, obviously that was supposed to happen. That was not an issue. The limo was brought out. They had the match. Punk in the back waiting for his match. We know all of the things that happened going into that point. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing that I saw, going back to the comment that the Phenom brought up on a little earlier about how Jack Perry should have also been fired, and I think that's the same way also. If you looked at Rampage and they were talking about Hook winning back the FTW championship, I don't know if anybody really noticed this, but they showed clips of Hook training, getting ready for his match, walking down the long aisle with the London fans, getting in the ring, winning the belt, and showcasing that he won the belt. And not one clip of Jack Perry was shown in that entire vignette. So that should tell you the suspension cuts deep. But it also goes to show you that that should not have been just a suspension. He should have been disciplined by losing his job, because he is just a symptom to the overall problem that AEW had.
Exactly right.
Tony Khan had to address 1 week after having a pay-per-view overseas, knowing that you had booked an entire week of programming from Dynamite to Rampage to Collision to the next pay-per-view that Sunday. Every single card was in Chicago. Why did they book Chicago? Let me guess. Maybe the main star of your company is who? What's his name?
Oh yeah, that's right. CM Punk.
There you go. And what did you do? Because of the lack of control and foresight to have somebody the caliber of Jack Perry, who has no power in the locker room, has no clout, and also has not anywhere near the selling power that CM Punk is. I'm not going to besmirch Jack Perry by saying he's nothing, he's garbage, et cetera, et cetera. But if I'm going to compare Jack Perry to CM Punk, there is no comparison. Definitely. Every metric that you would actually use to describe what CM Punk brings to the company, Perry doesn't exist. Definitely. And if you think about it in that sense, then wow, CM Punk, if they're going to have this fight, this war, whatever, what should have happened, Tony Khan, get them separated. Punk, you're done, go home. Perry, go home, you're suspended, et cetera, et cetera. Move him off the show and calm this down. Instead, what we got was the nonsense that came after. And for somebody that's been following wrestling, as long as both of us have, and to see what eventually happened as the result, it is the most stupid, self-aggrandizing, needless nonsense to happen in the wrestling business in quite some time. And I'm not just saying this for a bunch of hyperbole. I legitimately mean it. Because AEW, as a 4-year-old company, or just about 4 years old, to literally have this on their docket, and then to have to go ahead and shift everything, knowing that they booked a pay-per-view 1 week after the biggest pay-per-view that the company has ever run, and then to still have such a great turnout that they did. They really made lemonade out of some really sour lemons. And it was a really good show. And I will actually say, in comparison, for some folks, might have actually been a better pay-per-view than the week before for a lot of people. Now, that's debatable, but they did, I don't know what they did. I don't know what voodoo they did. I don't know if they had to get some cadeau out there. I don't know what juju they sprinkled on. Whatever it did, it worked. But here we are now. We're not even talking about that pay-per-view. The same way we weren't talking about All In. Mm-hmm. All In and All Out are replaced by sophomoric drama. And this is why Tony Khan has the issues that he has right now. because now he has to go in and talk to the media. He's got to talk to his wrestlers in the back whose morale is up and down. And then he's also got to be a kindergarten teacher. And he's got to go ahead and hold the hands of people that are there. And to go to the EVP point, if you are an executive vice president and your talent on the roster and you don't do anything that is executive enough, you're going to have problems. At least the power structure in the WWE was, even though we know Vince McMahon had guys talk in his ear, you know, he had Shawn Michaels, he had Triple H, he had at some point the Click saying, well, this guy shouldn't get this push and this guy, blah, 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 blah. And they could talk in his ear. But let's really call it the way it is. It starts and stops with Vince McMahon. Exactly. If Vince wanted something to happen, it happened. If he didn't want anything to happen, it did not happen. And there was not enough talking, convincing that you could do to change his mind unless that was what he said he was going to do. When it comes to Tony Khan, he has executive vice presidents, maybe in name only, that are talent on the roster. And when you give that kind of executive power to people that are on the roster that are wrestling, you are just asking to stick your hand in a fire and burn everything. That is something that you just cannot have happen. And it bit Tony Khan in the butt. And as we're seeing right now, as we've talked about ad nauseum, it seems like over the last couple of weeks, we're starting to see that end result. And my main worry is how's Collision going to be booked? My solution to that would be, if you're going to lean on a particular wrestler or group of wrestlers that's going to be the talent that are going to help kind of craft Collision going forward, I would do what Kevin Sullivan suggested and lean on Bryan Danielson a whole lot, because he's the type of wrestler that if you craft a show around, you would get kind of the same result that we're getting with Collision right now. Great wrestling, good promos, good storylines, stuff that makes sense. And you don't have the toilet bowl drama that's been going on since Days of Our Lives started on AEW television.
Not wrong at all. But now, you see, let's just go ahead and just time what the guys are saying. And, you know, we always appreciate you guys with the comments. And this is what they're saying right now, peeps. And, you know, Outrod, Tony feared for his life, best joke ever. Taekwon, you know who else feared for their life? Nancy Benoit. Have mercy.
Good grief.
Jesus, man. God. Wow. Then he says, shut up, Tony Khan. Agree with you on that one. If you know, Khan had the opportunity to become Mr. Khan in Chicago, if you know what I mean. Oh, yep. What? Punk screwed Punk? Were we really gonna need this?
Mr. You know, Khan. Can you imagine that, him walking out with a suit and tie? You know,
strutting everything.
I didn't screw CM Punk. CM Punk screwed CM Punk. I can see it now. And him just go ahead and doing the power walk outside with a mic. And then he grabs the mic and he says, hi, guys. You know what happened last week? I feared for my life, guys.
Takes a snort of cocaine.
Oh. What are we doing here? This is what is absolutely insane. Oh.
Phenom then says, Punk needs to take the AEW title to the next promotion and shoot. Yo, pull a Medusa, stick it in a trash can, forget it. Like, honestly, why not?
Wow.
Hot Rod says, I agree with the Phenom.
Wow, something that people can agree on to something.
Wow. For the first time, this is what it takes. This is the first time that not only the Hot Rod, but the Phenom have actually coexisted on something.
Yes. It goes to show you, AEW can bring people together.
In the wrong way.
Sharing is caring.
Sharing is caring. Taekwondo says the only Jungle Boy I'm claiming is Mowgli.
Wow.
Tarzan at that, man. Tarzan.
Bare necessities. Yeah, exactly. There you go.
And the last one, Arad says this. He's like, will the show Concussion, not Collision, but Concussion, Will it survive now without Punk and we have college football back? It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. This show isn't Collision is not Collision without CM Punk. This was Punk's creation. So to say, this is what, and pretty much this all started with Punk literally saying one thing, and Peeps highlighted this last week. When Jungle Boy wanted to go ahead and do this on Collision, what was Punk's full-on saying? He even what to put it, that's on promo. Listen, all this kind of stuff, we don't go ahead and put this on Collision. Save that scat for Dynamite or Rampage. We don't do that over here.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because Collision was strictly based on what CM Punk wanted to implement into the wrestling world. This was, as Peeps said, this was somewhat of like some type of reiteration and their version of Saturday Night's Main Event. And what the aesthetic was, what the storyline driven matches were, what the commentary was, all of it was just something that you can enjoy on a Saturday night. Do you really think now that tonight Collision will be able to go against Alabama versus Texas?
No.
Oh, no, I'm watching Alabama versus Texas. Screw Collision. Screw Collision. To hell with them. That's what it is now. We're not focused on Collision anymore. It's no longer what it is supposed to be because the one person who is to my right is no longer there. The person that spearheaded this whole new somewhat revolution within AEW to give
this
us
guy
strictly
right
based,
there, that
exactly,
guy right there,
good wrestling, supposed to be giving us good wrestling, no longer there. So you know what Collision's gonna be now? Super kick parties, 450 flips, scat. When it comes to what they book on the show, it is no longer going to be great. The only way it becomes great is if it has the backing of one person. And I can say this with my whole full heart. And that will be Bryan Danielson. Honestly speaking.
Yeah.
But with that, if not Bryan, who else? You gonna tell me you're gonna have the Young Bucks run it? Hell no. Screw that. I'm good. Because right now, AEW, if anything, Peeps, and I've said this many times over, and I remember I said this last year, because it's already been a year since All Out, or Brawl Out, I should say, and I said, Peeps, this is pretty much the warning shot for AEW running itself into the ground. Having stuff like this happen will just make it even worse.
Yeah.
But now, with them firing Punk, and Punk alone, alongside, as you mentioned, Ace Steel gets brought back just for the sole reason of Collision, just to be fired after CM Punk gets fired.
Yes.
So what is that telling you? So Peeps, honestly, when I said Brawl Out was the first warning shot, all this is right now, Peeps, is Strike 2. And we know it's Strike 2 because it's beginning to show. You have runners on base, score tied, bottom of the ninth, and you're already 2 outs. One more out, it's done. You're on the verge of ruining what it is for AEW because now the sole reason of people watching is MJF and Adam Cole. Nobody really cares about if you're a real casual wrestling fan, those who actually implement them, because let's be honest here, real diehard wrestling fans, it probably makes up for more than half of the people who watch AEW as a whole.
Those are the ones you don't even worry about. It's the other ones that you got to worry about.
It's the other casuals.
Yes.
Who were there for Punk, who were there for MJF, to see Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson at that. Those who they've seen in WWE, wish they were still in WWE, they watch for them. But now with Punk being gone and knowing the situation behind it, you really think they're going to sit back for that? That made up another, like 1/3 of your merchandise sales, 1/3 of your viewership, 1/3 of your gates. Where does that go now? Because right now we're already seeing that it shows because nobody's really buying tickets for your show on the 13th this coming week.
And mind you, they got another pay-per-view before Full Gear. Remember, Full Gear is in November, which is supposed to be, if I'm not mistaken, in Los Angeles. Because
at the Kia Forum.
is going to be at the Kia Forum. Now that they're booking a big arena for Full Gear, but they have a pay-per-view in Seattle, Washington on October the 1st, which is kind of like a New Japan dedication type show, which is kind of, I think,
which is cool.
Yeah, for Antonio Inoki, and it's going to be kind of like a collaboration. It's not to the extent of Forbidden Door, but you can kind of get the same kind of vibe for it. And it's going to be in Seattle on October the 1st. They have to now, in their own way, get out of the drama that they're doing right now. As some people would say that they're in their own funk, to get out of that, and then clear the air to make sure that when they do what they do going forward, they can make sure that this does not become what everybody knows the company for. AEW for a long time was known for forward-thinking storylines where they would go ahead and draw things out from other promotions and then connect them and then go off on them and give the wrestlers the freedom to kind of play those out as if they were still in the promotions that started those feuds. And that was something that I used to always talk about, was that they know how to make long-term feuds and storylines, build them up. They're still doing it, but not to the same extent and not with the same focus. And the reason, because of it, things outside of their own, outside of their own nature, some things happen, injuries, illness, etc., whatever. But the problem here is they've lost the focus that made AEW as unique as it is. And I'm not talking about Moxley bleeding all over everybody. I'm not talking about everybody throwing S-bombs on television, because literally anybody can do that. It's the things that you do them right. Then you build off of that foundation, and then you build the rest from the ground up so that everything else works. And if that foundation is weak, and we've seen cracks in that foundation, then the public that are watching are going to question why they're still tuning in. Now, I'm not going to say this is doom and gloom, because obviously their business is up by evidence of how much money and the gate and et cetera. Everything by those metrics are up.
Of course.
The issue that we're seeing now is, how do they sustain it? How do they make sure that they don't lose the fans that they have and then try to gain more of those fans? And if you have more petty nonsense like what we've been seeing with the CM Punk stuff and how weak Tony Khan looks from the outside, why would anybody want to stay there? And then here's the other flip side to that. How many wrestlers that are on the roster, either on Dynamite, Rampage, or on Collision, are close friends with CM Punk, whose contracts may be up soon, that may be rubbed the wrong way based on how this whole thing turned out? We know Andrade is a very close friend. He showed solidarity with Punk, and he went on Twitter and said, look, until we meet on the road again, preferably sometime in the ring. So Andrade might look at this in a certain way, like, why am I here? If that's the case, maybe I'll go, because Andrade hasn't really been on television in quite some time. And when he is on television, it's been very sporadic, for the exception of one feud over his mask. He's a friend of Punk's. You can see that. On, I believe it was Collision, FTR, they did the X sign as they were coming down the ring on camera. This was after everybody knew that CM Punk had now been terminated from the company. They're friends with CM Punk. You got a lot of other guys like Brody King, who's a very good friend of CM Punk's. Who knows how far down the connective tissue and the nerve endings that you're going to feel with Punk being gone, that certain way that a lot of these wrestlers are going to take it. Now, you got also opponents to that same thing. That's the counterculture within the company of the wrestlers and the talent. The fans are going to see through the facade of what's going on at some point, and they're going to make up their mind using their wallets as to who they're going to side with and if the product is worth it, even with all of the high school drama stuff. And my thought process is, if they're going to continue this, they've got to get from underneath this admit that this was nonsense, move on from it, and then develop something else that is just as compelling. And the closest thing that they have right now is what they've been doing with MJF, Adam Cole, the Kingdom, and all of the other things that are surrounding it. If they can continue to just get that going, and then some of the other feuds and some of the other things that they got, but they've done a great job in building Orange Cassidy, even with his gimmick and a lot of people losing their minds over it. Orange Cassidy is a big deal in the eyes of the AEW fan. Darby Allin is one of the most marketable people that AEW has on their roster. FTR for the diehard wrestling fan that looks at tag team wrestling as the way it is. Guys like you and I, we see them. If you tell me FTR is wrestling right now, I'll change the channel and I'll look at them right now.
Exactly.
That's what you want from AEW. And to continue that counterculture of booking the sports entertainment stuff with how we're going to show you the sports presentation that Cody Rhodes envisioned when he founded this company. That's where that juxtaposition is. We leverage a modicum of the sports entertainment that they seem to be dabbling in, or the sports presentation that shows you the stats of the wrestlers for the year, that there was a ranking system of who's going to get the title shot, of how important those championships are supposed to be. That's what they should be focusing on, and not this sophomore garbage, because it's going to bite them in the butt. And I cannot believe I'm going to quote Hulk Hogan in saying this.
Oh God, the liar?
Yes. But there was when he talked about the downfall of WCW, basically what he said is, you can get away with making little mistakes. You can maybe get past them. But if you make a big mistake, it's that much harder to recover from. If you make more than one big mistake, you'll never recover from it. Like I said, I can't believe I'm using Hulk Hogan as somebody that actually has a quote that makes sense, that's pertinent to what we're talking about. But this is literally where we are in the ionosphere of this business, the way it's going right now. AEW is on notice. They got to get themselves together and get out of this nonsense. Let's see how they carve their way away from this and move forward, because they have more than enough positives to do so, and see if they can get back on the right track and get that bitter taste out of their mouths of what has just happened over the last 2 weeks.
Exactly right, peeps. Now I'm going to go ahead and just quote somebody who spoke over the weekend about this, named Mark Henry, to go ahead and end the first half of this topic. And that is Mark Henry. Mark said on Busted Open Radio, of course, hosted by Bully Ray and, of course, Tommy Dreamer. And he said, now you can freely go and there will be no more complaining. There should be no more complaining. The problem is gone. The so-called problem is everything should, in part of my language, everything should be shits and giggles and unicorn pee and rainbow blankets. That's what it should be now. I'm curious to see how it's going to be. The problem is solved. When Rodman left, the team got worse. When he left Chicago, they got worse. San Antonio, they got worse. Detroit got worse when he left because he was a defensive stalwart. I'm going to go against your best player and I'm going to make his life miserable. It's going to affect his offense. As far as Punk is concerned, it's not the offense affected. It's the money, the gates, the live events, the brass tacks dealing with licensing products and merchandise money coming in. Money is going to be affected. Still, everything is solved now. The problem is gone. There should be peace and prosperity in life. A good friend of Punk's.
Yes.
Literally telling you that AEW might be going down the drain to the fact that they let go of this man. And they still have no exact reason as to why. Of course, other than Tony saying that he quote unquote feared for his life and then, somehow keeping the rest of the guys that kind of started.
That is single-handedly still the most ridiculous statement that I've ever seen. And I can also, I'm of the mindset of thinking and I think I touched on this a little bit last week. I don't think Tony Khan is the person that has had many conflicts, if you understand where I'm coming from in life, as far as getting into a fight, getting into a big argument, that kind of thing. And when you are an executive and you are of privilege, meaning the son of somebody that has billions of dollars, at his disposal, and he can literally get anything he wants. And you can do that and not be around people that could potentially be toxic or get into some sort of physical fight. But you're a wrestling fan, and as a kid, you are around wrestlers, you get your wrestling figures, and you start up a wrestling promotion with your action figures and do all of those kinds of things. Yeah, that's understandable. But if you are an executive, and here's something else that really crazy, and this is something that you brought up to me also, that Vince Russo brought this up. Now, I don't have the exact tweet in front of me, but I'll try to paraphrase it.
Mm-hmm.
He's basically saying that, did you actually think in a business full of egos and big guys and big women and big egos, et cetera, that something would happen and you wouldn't be around it? You need to either get better people around you or get out of it, bro, because this is not how wrestling is, bro. These are big guys with big egos, and they do these kinds of things, bro. You're supposed to be the voice of reason, and if you're not, you need to get out of it.
Let me go ahead and put this exactly right. Peeps.
Yes.
I think we all, as wrestling fans, diehard wrestling fans, the ones that know history, remember the Vince McMahon and Nails situation, right?
Yes.
So, let me ask you something. Did Vince ever go on national television and say that he feared for his life, or did he keep Nails in for a longer time until he ended up getting released later?
And then he fired him. Eventually, that's what he did.
Yeah,
he didn't go into anything, and
he never went on live national television. He never sent out a PA report or a PR report that said, "Oh, I feared for my life." Who else has done something to him?
Brock Lesnar. We go to the Bret Hart thing.
Bret Hart.
Bret literally gave him a Shoryuken in the locker room.
Not even
because he had it coming.
He first spat on his face. He first spat on his face on live television.
Yes, he gave him a nasty loogie.
Wrote the other company's initials on TV. Then
he destroyed a camera before he went to the back.
Broke property.
Yes.
And then in front of all locker room leaders. And it's so funny because you would think that he would have it out for Undertaker even after this, because Taker probably didn't step in. But Taker sat there, Shawn sat there, the Briscoe sat there, and Bret Hart literally told him, "If you're still in here by the time I get I change my clothes, I'm going to punch you dead in the face." He was still there in front of everybody that was inside. Vince McMahon took the biggest uppercut known to man.
Sure you can.
And did he go out the next night in Montreal and say, "I feared for my life when Bret Hart did that. He will no longer be here.
I feared for my life. I can't do my job anymore." No, he didn't do that. He basically owned it and turned it into probably the greatest character in the history of, I will say, sports entertainment, because that's what the WWE or WWF at the time crafted. That is the creation, the genesis of the Mr. McMahon character. Exactly. And he took that and leaned into it. Now, I'm not saying Tony Khan should do something like that, but it would be funny if he did.
You know what was the first thing that came to my mind when he said that? Of course, I know, peeps, you're cultured. I'm cultured as well. We're all cultured here on Saturday Afternoons Main Event, even the fans.
Yes.
So you wouldn't know the movie Friday. You know that one part with Smokey and Debo, of course, Tommy Lister, and he's trying to get Smokey to go ahead and go into like that other house and rob the house. And Smokey's like, "Bro, I don't want to do it." And what does Debo say to him? Stop being up and come on.
Yes.
That is what I'm saying to Tony Khan.
Yes.
Why are you being that much of a wuss? I can't go ahead and say the actual word on. It's a family show. I can't do it. But damn it, man, you're hitting 40, and you're this much of a. It's the fact that I can't curse on airways. Jesus, that's what I do for you guys, because I know you guys want to see me lose it, but I'm gonna keep my calm.
Yes,
and we're gonna move on to the second half of this. This is where the question from Tombstone City Adam comes in. He says, well, IWC, cue the CM Punk WWE return renderings. It's that season again.
Yeah.
So this is where we go into now, peeps. We remember when I reported that CM Punk was at the Allstate Arena in Chicago for a Monday Night Raw.
Yes.
We remember when we said that he had buried the hatchet with The Miz, spoken to a couple of other superstars in the back,
mm-hmm.
and then he spoke to Triple H briefly. We do know that the reason why he left is because Vince McMahon didn't want to have any issues with AEW, so he informed Punk to just leave the building for that reason. But if Punk probably wasn't under contract, Punk probably still would have been there talking to everybody. And maybe Vince probably would have flew in and probably talked to Punk as well. But we know that in some senses, Punk didn't burn the bridge. It seemed like it did back in 2014, but it seems like it's starting to be built back up in some way, shape, or form.
He did more than burn the bridge. He took a blowtorch to it, covered it in napalm, and then just blew it. There you go.
There we go. But peeps, now knowing that he's gone, knowing that anything is possible in wrestling, because remember, Punk said that he was never going to go back to professional wrestling, i.e. came back in 2021. Anything's possible, never say never. Knowing that Survivor Series is taking place in Chicago in November, that's one thing. Knowing that now we heard that while he was taking out of the company, suspended indefinitely for a little bit, he wanted to go ahead and be at the Rumble this past year. And there was word going out, somewhat of a rumor, kind of like a dirt sheet, saying that he wanted to face and work with Kevin Owens at this past year's WrestleMania in Los Angeles. Knowing that, and knowing that he's now gone from AEW, is there a shot that Charles Montgomery, Cookie Monster Punk, shows back up on WWE television in the coming months?
I will give you a 0.0000240% chance that it happens, which is basically me saying not a chance in hell. It will not happen. And I think the reason why everybody, as you stated, mostly it's the Survivor Series in Chicago, and everybody's expecting, since he's disgruntled against AEW. And I think there was also a report that CM Punk is going to speak his mind on the situation at some point. And I think the description of the wording was it's going to be explosive. So he's going to let it all out. I think that what we're looking at now is the hope of the fans wanting him to come out and say something. Although what that is, I don't know. Would he go on WWE television and craft a speech or craft something that is so huge and so explosive that it would hurt AEW to the core? Maybe. I just don't see it happen. If anything, I could see him going on another TV show. I would put it with him going to Impact over WWE before that would happen. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think CM Punk right now is just going.
Can you imagine?
Oh,
in 2005, I had left TNA. 2024. I'm back.
And he'd do the exact same storylines that he was going to do in AEW and bring it to Impact. Could you imagine? Oh, but by the way, that had brought up Impact just for this quick amount. They're doing their next pay-per-view, which is their version of their WrestleMania, which is Bound for Glory on the 21st of October. Yep. And they announced that their Hall of Fame inductees are going to be, drum roll, is going to be Mike Tenay and Don West are going into the Impact Hall of Fame. And they're going to induct them during the weekend of Bound for Glory.
That's a W. That's
a straight up win.
Yes, so, exactly right. I mean, for that, Don West on its own, it just holds compatibility. Yes. I mean, for God's sake.
Yes.
Long live Don West. Rest in peace to him. I mean, wow. Yes. No, that's great.
It's all pro wrestling, people. It's all pro wrestling, people. Oh, I love Don West. His enthusiasm, his love, the joy that he had for calling matches. You could tell. Even though he came from doing infomercials and doing, he was selling $99, people. He came from that world and turned it into his showing his love for pro wrestling, and it showed. Mike Tenay, the professor, there really isn't much else you can say about him.
Of course,
from doing Lucha Libre, then going to do the WCW as one of the main broadcasters for Monday Nitro, and then also doing WCW Saturday Night Once in a Blue Moon, doing Thunder, being the voice of TNA Impact for well over 15 years. Yeah, I think that's deserved. So they both go in, they both deserve it, and you can't make a bad choice with that at all.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
And CM Punk should be the guy to induct him. There you go. See, there's the segue right there.
Imagine so. Imagine so. I mean, for God's sakes. But peeps.
Yes.
With that being said, God help Tony Khan. God help the EVPs.
Yes.
God bless CM Punk. And God help professional wrestling as a whole. I mean, for God's sake. Man. I can't. Taekwon, greatest way to end a show. The Impact Hall of Fame is like being Employee of the Month at McDonald's. Golly. He had to say it, man. He had to say it. But you know what?
Yes.
With that being said, that marks the end of today's episode of Saturday Afternoon's Main Event.
A very chaotic episode for a very chaotic week.
Chaotic would just be a understatement, peeps. We have went through so much in the past couple of weeks.
Yes.
I mean, for God's sakes, who would have thought all of this would have been, wow. Just wow. There's not much I can possibly say.
Yes.
But with that being said, we will see you guys next week, episode 10. That is the mid-season finale. We will then go on a quick little break, come back for episode 11, and then so on and so forth up until the point that we have our season finale for season 6. But with that being said, on this episode of Saturday Afternoon's Main Event, just remember, I the Phenomenal One.
And I the Peeps Nate, where we came.
We saw.
And in the words of the great Paul Heyman, we conquered.
That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you guys next week. It is the Phenomenal One. It is the Mr. Peep Snake. Signing off here on Saturday Afternoon's Main Event, Season 6, Episode 9. Peace, love, farewell.